Full service, 100.1 FM WJBD, and good morning, evening, morning. It's midnight, which means it's time for the Untitled Midnight Music Show once again, week 2 here. I'm Matt Donahoe.
And I'm Steve Stein.
Matt Leibarger.
And welcome again. We have producer Steve Stein
Welcome
here.
back.
Welcome back. We are back, and we have our producer Steve Stein willing to talk into the microphone this week and tell us about the song we just heard, Steve.
We just heard Chesney Hawkes, the one and only, that was from the movie Doc Hollywood.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you a trivia question.
I'm
talking into the microphone. I was going to ask you a trivia question if you knew the movie that came from. Matt, did you remember that?
I did not.
Yeah. And you know what movie I think ripped Doc Hollywood off?
No.
Cars.
Yeah, I guess I could kind of see that.
Because
Yeah.
what's Doc Hollywood about? Okay.
He
Doc
loses
Hollywood.
his way, gets stuck in a little town. Yeah,
And he's kind of a hot shot guy going out to California, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then he gets stuck in the town, and doesn't he have to do some work to...
He has to work as a temporary doctor to get,
Yeah.
and he learns to love the little town. Yeah, I got you.
And that's what I always thought about. Are you just coming to this real... You look shocked. I think I've disturbed you about cars.
I have to admit, it did kind of take a little bit out of my sail about the movie.
Well, we are here once again playing some great songs that you may not usually hear during the regular hours of WJBD. And Matt Leibarger, tell us about this next song.
Okay, this is a good example of what you were just talking about. This next song is
about cars?
more recently than that.
Okay.
This song is by an artist named Kurt Vile. And I think we've had this conversation before. By name, he would sound like he would be a punk rocker or something like that. He's like an early 30s singer-songwriter. About a third of his songs seem like they're about his wife and kid and how he doesn't like to go on tour and misses them and things like that. So quite the opposite maybe. And actually that's his given name apparently also.
That's not his stage name.
No. Matt Donahoe, would you like to talk into the microphone?
Sorry, I've been learning from our producer here. So,
okay, so here we have Kurt Vile off his most recent album. The song is "Waking on a Pretty Day." Full service 100.1 FM WJBD. That's Kurt Vile off of his most recent album. "Waking on a Pretty Days" is the album. The song is "Waking on a Pretty Day." You're listening to the as yet untitled Midnight Music Show. I'm Matt Leibarger with Matt Donahoe and Steve Stein. Up next, I think one of all of our favorite 80s songs, Electric Blue.
full service 100.1 FM WJBD. Matt Donahoe here on the Untitled Midnight Music Show, along with Matt Leibarger and Steve Stein. That was a song that I like the song, like the artist. Paul McCartney, Spies Like Us from the movie
Spies Like Us.
Spies Like Us. And we had a debate off air about whether or not we should play that song. Here's why I think we should not have played that song. We played Beatles at the top of the hour.
How does that matter? I mean, rules do not apply.
Plus, if I knew we were going to be doing the 80s version, I would have brought some different CDs.
Yeah, well, okay, first of all, we've been doing a lot of 80s, but we played the Beatles, Steve, at the top of the hour. And
what's your point?
Paul McCartney was in the Beatles?
Yes.
Did you know that?
I'm aware. I'm quite aware. Thank you.
Did you know? Seriously? Did you know that? Let's play Beatles trivia. I'm going to name people. You tell me if they're in the Beatles or not. Okay, here we go.
All right.
George Harrison.
Yes.
John Mellencamp.
No.
Elvis Presley.
No.
Roy Orbison.
Not yet.
Spider-Man.
Yes.
Up next, a check of the Weather Eye forecast.
72.
Full service 100.1 FM, WJBD. You're listening to the Midnight Music Show. Untitled Midnight Music Show, as of now. We just came back from a check of Weather Eye, which means it's time for what we are trying to establish as a weekly tradition, which is a weekly Crowded House song. So the song this week is, which one did we decide to go with? It's Only Natural, right? So here's Crowded House with It's Only Natural on Full Service 100.1 FM WJBD.
Naturally.
Service 100.1 FM, WJBD, one of my favorites, In Excess, and What You Need from the 80s and from Australia. Also before that, from the 80s in Australia, was Colin Hay, former lead singer of Men at Work. Men at Work. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Do you know what album that was from, though? Do you?
No.
Okay. That was a song called Overkill, originally done by Men at Work.
Yes.
And then
Is it from a soundtrack?
it's not.
Okay.
It's not. No, unfortunately, we kind of ruined that streak. But it's actually from a CD he did of covers called Man at Work.
Nice. That's clever.
Yes, it is. And then we started off with another band from the 80s, Crowded House, also from
The 80s?
Australia.
Oh, yeah. That too.
So that was kind of our unintentional 80s Australian three-pack there. So
Good day, mate.
and Steve with a terrible Australian accent. So Matt, can you can you lift us out of the 80s and Australia?
I certainly can. I will transplant us to California in the early 70s. And in the process, I get to say something that I never thought I would get to say on the air ever in my entire life. Here's Tom Waits on Full Service 100.1 FM, WJBD. Full Service 100.1 FM, WJBD. That's Nora Jones from a Waylon Jennings tribute album. That's a Waylon Jennings song, Wurlitzer Prize. We'll be back with more music right after this.
And we're back on Full Service 100.1 FM, WJBD. We have somehow made it to the end of our second show. You guys excited?
Amazing.
Yay.
Quiet, Steve. So, thank you for tuning in. And if you liked us, tell a friend to listen next week when we will be back playing some great music and talking about it. And if you didn't like us, don't tell anybody.
Ever.
So, Matt Donahoe saying goodnight.
Steve Stein saying goodnight.
Matt Leibarger, bye.
And who is this? What are we doing?
Come as you are, man. Or don't come at all.
Peter Wolf on Full Service 100.1 FM, WJBD.